Good morning, basa na tayo natin libro guys. Kapwa ko Pilipino, basa na tayo. Today is 6 January 2023. History of the Filipino People, Party, Reform and Revolution. Topic number 13, paragraph. The Battle of Pasong Tirad. Basa. The Battle of Pasong Tirad. In Aguinaldo's flight to the north, his rearguard commander, General Gregorio del Pilar, noted the advantageous terrain of Pasong Tirad. He therefore suggested that in order to halt the Americans temporarily, he would stay behind and make a last stand at the pass. He thought that such a battle would necessarily delay the Americans and give Aguinaldo, on the other hand, sufficient time to widen the distance between him and the pursuing enemy. Aguinaldo approved del Pilar's suggestion with much regret, for the young del Pilar, the boy general of the armed forces, had been loyal to him. Pasong Tirad was 4,500 feet high and commanded a good view for miles around. The trail leading to it was so narrow that only one man at a time could clamber up the hill. Del Pilar ordered his 60 men to build trenches on both shoulders of the pass where they could see the movement of the enemy below. At 10 o'clock on the night of December 1, 1899, Aguinaldo received Del Pilar's report that the Americans had arrived at the town of Concepcion. The Americans under Major March pursued Aguinaldo relentlessly, for only the capture of the wealthy Filipino leader could end Filipino resistance to American rule. In the morning of December 2, March proceeded with his men, about 300 strong, against Pasong Tirad. From atop the pass, the Filipino defenders fired at the advancing enemy, who had not so far pinpointed the exact position of the Filipinos. Through January Galot, a Christian Egorot, the Americans found a secret trail to the top, and using it to advantage, surprised Del Pilar and his men. It was about 11:30 in the morning, and the sun was mercilessly beating down upon the bodies of the dead and the wounded. In a matter of minutes, the Filipino defenders were overcome by the enemy. Del Pilar, wounded in the shoulder, ordered his remaining men to escape. Then he strove to escape by a narrow trail, but as he mounted his white horse, a cracked rifle rang out through the midday air and felled him with a bullet and passed through the neck. The Americans rushed headlong and captured the soldier holding the reins of Del Pilar's horse. Then they looted the dead body for souvenirs. Del Pilar's body was left by the roadside for 2 days until its odor forced some Egorots to cover it with dirt. On his diary, which Major March found, Del Pilar had written, "The General Aguinaldo has given me the pick of all the men that can be spared and ordered me to defend the pass. I realize that a terrible task has been given me, and yet I feel that this is the most glorious moment of my life. What I do is done for my beloved country. No sacrifice can be too great." The afternoon of the battle, Aguinaldo received the fatal news. All the members of the Aguinaldo party, said one of the soldiers in his diary, shed bitter tears, and all wanted to fight the Americans. The capture of Aguinaldo. With the Philippine army bereft of its leader and symbol, many Filipino soldiers and officers found it convenient to surrender to the enemy. At the same time, the Americans conducted an intensive campaign of propaganda to win over the Filipinos to their side. They used the members of the Filipino middle and upper classes: Cayetano Arellano, Pedro A. Paterno, Felipe Bencamino, Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, Benito Legarda, Gregorio Araneta, and others, to campaign for peaceful existence under the Americans. Dutifully, the Filipino collaborators, tired of carnage and disturbance and wanting to continue their exalted position under the American regime, appealed to the guerrillas to give up their arms and live peacefully under the blessings of America. Pardo de Tavera in particular founded the newspaper La Democracia, whose policy was based on what he termed the fraternal feelings which the President of the United States and the American people have toward them, the Filipinos. While the American peace offensives were going on, Colonel Frederick Funston, stationed in Nueva Ecija, was planning the capture of Aguinaldo. His men and earlier accepted the surrender of Sigismondo, Aguinaldo's messenger, and had decoded some letters of Aguinaldo to his field generals. Knowing that the road of Palanan was fraught with danger, Funston employed some Macabebes and two former officers in the Filipino Army, Lazaro Segovia and Hilario Tal Placido, to help put his plan into execution. With the reluctant blessing of General MacArthur, Funston and his co-conspirators sailed to Palanan on the American warship Vicksburg. Funston ordered the forging of the signature of General Urbano Lacona, to whom Aguinaldo wrote in order to send reinforcements to Palanan, and made it appear that Lacona was sending the needed reinforcements to Aguinaldo. After days of hardships, Funston and his American companions, pretending to be captives of Macabebes, arrived at Palanan on March 23, 1901. Aguinaldo and his men met the Filipinos joyfully and even gave them food and shelter. Without any warning, the Macabebes turned against their countrymen, and Tal Placido grabbed Aguinaldo from behind. The firing, however, unnerved Tal Placido, who promptly fell on his stomach. Segovia began firing like a madman, and colonists Munfilia, fearing for Aguinaldo's life, shielded him from the bullets. Aguinaldo, who had by now whipped his pistol, wanted to fight back, but Dr. Santiago Barcelona held him by the arm, saying, "My general, you owe it to our people to live and continue fighting for freedom." Funston and his American companions entered the room and arrested Aguinaldo in the name of the United States government. He was brought to Manila and on April 1, he took his oath of allegiance to the United States. In a proclamation he issued on April 19, he appealed to all Filipinos to accept the sovereignty of the United States. Barbarous Acts. War has always been uncivilized, and although its weapons have vastly improved with the advance of science, its techniques have not changed radically from those of less civilized ages. In almost all cases, brutality as an instrument to weaken an enemy's resistance is practiced on both sides of the fence. The Filipino-American War was not an exception, particularly because the combatants belonged to two different races and civilizations. In judging Filipino brutality, however, one must remember that the Filipinos, having been the victims of American apostasy and imperialistic designs disguised as benevolent and altruistic, have little to answer for their behavior towards the Americans, for they consider the latter not only as traitors to their cause, but also as interlopers and an obstacle to their legitimate desire for freedom and independence. This is not to justify Filipino brutality committed as a defensive measure, but simply to explain why the Filipinos had to be brutal to the Americans who came to the Philippines purportedly to help them win their independence from Spain, but who actually had imperialistic designs on their country. The sources for analysis of these brutalities came from Filipino participants and eyewitnesses, and from the Americans themselves, who, in a moment of moral agony, divulged the details and particulars of American brutalities in letters to their parents and friends, and in testimonies before American investigating bodies. When the American military found to their discomfiture That the Filipinos were a stubborn people, they resorted to extreme measures to soften the Filipinos were to fight, said an author. Some of them Americans resorted to tortures the likes of which had not been witnessed in the Philippines before. The cruelty some Americans came to the knowledge of the American public through articles and letters written by soldiers who had seen such brutalities perpetrated upon the Filipinos. One such article appeared in Philadelphia, January 2, 1902, alleging that the American soldier under Stooges, the Macabebe Scouts, used the water cure almost invariably to loosen the tongues of the helpless Filipinos in order to force them to rebel the movements, weapon size, and methods of the guerrillas. The cure consisted in forcing a man to lie flat on his back, his mouth forced open by a stick and bayonet, and in some instances a cartridge case. Then water, usually salty or dirty, was poured into his mouth until his stomach was distended. The water was then disgorged from the stomach by making a jar of it for the soldiers to sit on. The process was repeated until the victim shouted, "Hold enough." There was variety in the mode of torture. Less common was the rope cure, in which a long piece of rope was wrapped around the neck and torso of the victim, and a stick was placed between the coils of rope and slowly twisted to give the effect of a garrote. Sometimes beating up a victim was resorted to until he became blue in the face. Two American officers, Lieutenant Alva Perkins and Captain George Brandel, were charged with a trial for willfully and cruelly causing 6 Filipinos to be hung by the neck for a period of 10 seconds, causing them to suffer bodily pains. They were found guilty and reprimanded to their sadistic efforts. In their desperation, the American soldiers turned arsonists, burning whole towns in order to force the guerrillas to the open. One such infamous case of extreme barbarity occurred in the town of Balangiga. Oh, yung Balangiga bills, parang kailan lang na ano to, ni Madam Imelda Marcos, yung Balangiga bills. Ulit guys ha. Napakatagal na palang panahon pala talaga nito. One such infamous case of extreme barbarity occurred in the town of Balangiga, Samar in 1901-1902. Balangiga was a peaceful little port of the southern tip of Samar, but it was garrisoned by Americans who could not pinpoint the nerve center of guerrilla activities in the town. Many American soldiers who garrisoned the town were veterans of the Boxer Rebellion and had participated in the capture of Peking. The American soldiers were busy one morning taking their breakfast when suddenly they were attacked by Filipinos and their employee, the church bells. Oh, ito yung kinuha ng nila. The church bells. Nabalita kasi ito minsan sa atin, di ba? Yung Balangiga bells. Okay, the American, dito lang, mga, nakaraang, I think, the last year, 2022 na nga yata. The American soldiers were busy one morning taking their breakfast when suddenly they were attacked by Filipinos and their employee. The church bells rang and soon about 180 Filipinos fell upon the Americans, many of whom were killed instantly. The other Americans who tried to escape were boiled to death, while others were hacked from the nose to the throat. The news of the guerrilla attack gave rise to pain cries throughout the United States, and so President Theodore Roosevelt gave orders to pacify Samar. Assigned to the task was General Jake Smith. "I want no prisoners," he said firmly. "I wish you to kill and burn. The more you burn and kill, the better it will please me." Forthwith, he ordered that Samar be transformed into a howling wilderness. Orders were also issued to shoot down anybody capable of carrying arms. By capable of carrying arms, General Smith meant to include even boys 10 years old, for the latter could carry rifles and swing bolos. In 6 months, Balangiga became a howling wilderness. Kawawa naman, no? The barbarity with which General Smith subdued the people of Samar touched the conscience of the American people. After the end of the bloody campaign, Smith was court-martialed and retired from the service. Another author, an American State of American Brutalities, Lieutenant Basil Thomas of the 35th Infantry was convicted of striking prisoners, one of whom was lying on the ground and bleeding from the mouth. The officer was reprimanded and fined $300. Just before Mr. Root took office, Robert Collins of the Associated Press was permitted to cable. There has been, according to Otis himself and the personal knowledge of everyone here, a perfect orgy of looting and wanton destruction of property. Private Jones of the 11th Cavalry wrote that his troop na ako guys ito. Siguro tapusin lang natin to. Yung end of the resistance bukas na yan. Ulitin ko lang ha. There has been, according to Otis himself and the personal knowledge of everyone here, a perfect orgy of looting and wanton destruction of property. Private Jones of the 11th Cavalry wrote that his troop, upon encountering a wedding party, fired into the trunk, killing the bride and 2 men and wounding another woman and 2 children. A captain and lieutenant of the 27th Regiment were tried for hanging 6 Filipinos by their necks for 10 seconds, causing them to suffer great bodily pain. After the wards were changed to mental anguish, the officers were found guilty and sentenced to reprimands. In April, the mayors of San Miguel and San Nicolas were beaten to death by rattan rods. Sorry. The episode leaked out when 2 officers of the American regiment reported it to the governor and to General Young, and its July 26 issue, the New York World carried the story. Our soldiers here and there resort to horrible measures with the natives. Captains and lieutenants are sometimes judges, sheriffs, and executioners. I don't want any prisoners sent into Manila, was the verbal order from the Governor General 3 months ago. It is now the custom to avenge the death of an American soldier by burning to the ground all the houses and killing right and left the natives who are only suspects. Brutality, however, was not an American monopoly, the Filipinos too fighting with their back to the wall to preserve what was legitimately their own, equaled and in some cases exceeded the American sergeants' penchant for blood. See the Filipino author already mentioned, the guerrillas in violation of Aguinaldo's order and secular treated captured Americans with barbaric cruelty. Noses and ears were lopped off and the bleeding wounds seasoned with salt. In some cases, American prisoners were buried alive. Kicking, slapping, spitting at the faces of American prisoners were common. The hatred of the Americans being such that the guerrillas forgot or conveniently forgot Aguinaldo's injunction regarding the good treatment to be accorded the prisoners. Thus, the brutality of the conqueror, or as an old veteran of the revolution called the interloper, was matched by Filipino brutality. So, hanggang dyan lang guys. Bukas na yung paragraph end of the resistance. Bye everyone. God bless.